All right, and we are live for another episode of Beyond the Escape. Today I titled it Nose to the Grindstone because that's where we're at with this project. It's about to be just pure writing, and I hope you're ready for it, Danny.
Sure.
All right, so what questions do you have for me on where to go next?
The big one. I've well, and I guess I should explain. I've had a trip to Las Vegas, came back with the flu. I was completely out of commission for about a week, and then I've just been catching up. So I'm getting back into this now. Literally, where do you need me? What's next on this? Where are we?
Okay, so we will pull up the angle because it's a pretty good example. Let me see if I can share the screen here. Screen share and this one. Can you see that, or is it flashing?
It's flashing. And well, now just the interface is flashing.
All right.
But we can see the text, so I guess that's what matters.
Yeah, it's very strange. Maybe if I go to F11, it will
well, now F11 only that makes it full size? Taskbar is flashing.
There we go.
And there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. All right, good old technical difficulties. You did say you could hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what we need to work on next is everything right in the beginning here. Basically now all the creature stats are done, and what we need to do is fill in this beginning section, and every entry has the name of the creature at the top and then the name of the creature down below where the creature stat starts. And what I've done, this one's a good example because I realized that there's no way that our two characters could see 100 monsters. And also like that some of the stuff would be better served if it was like we pulled stuff out of these other like monster hunters, these other people who've studied it, like out of their tomes and put it in our journal. So this one is from the Bestiary Tome of CNN. And I have a list actually in another page of all the different tomes or books that were pulled that we can pull from. And I gave each one of them sort of a voice. Now you don't have to write in these guys in this voice. You can just do it all with your characters with your character if you'd like, or you could add some of your own.
Okay.
But this is it's a way. I sort of maybe ran into what you were seeing, where it was hard to like how do you write about this from your character's point of view? And I'm writing, when Atan writes, he writes in a very laid back writing style. And I felt that just didn't work for everything. And so I thought it'd be neat to mix it up a little bit.
Okay. Where's this? You said there's a, what are you talking about? The list of tomes.
All right. So this is before you start writing. This page that I just pulled up is probably the one that you should read first. It's at the very top of the Creature Compendium folder in Google Drive. This explains what a monster is. And, you know, like here it has the different types of monsters. If we scroll down a little bit more, different sanity effects and what they mean. And I've written this in a mixture of like gaming. You know, we have to have the gaming language in there, obviously. But I've also written in, I've written it in what I feel is a voice of Atan, as if he was creating a game of these creatures, so that way it sort of sticks with the rest of the book.
Right.
And if we go down, here's like all the different special abilities. Okay, I thought it was in here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's under notes. I guess everyone's getting to see both how organized and disorganized we are. Okay, here we go. So it's under, asterisk notes, so that way it keeps it at the top of the list. This is some of the notes that we've done on our characters already, like how when they started and so on. But then right here is the other texts, and I actually did write off to the side. So Oharad only deals with creatures from the Nevirum, and he speaks in a plain speech, which probably means like not academic.
Right.
The next one, Wolfram Buell.
Casual speech.
What's that?
Casual speech.
Yes. Wolfram Buell's here is an Uthgardian book that details magical monsters, and plain English with some grammatical mistakes. And I'm going to actually have to talk to the editor about this because Wolfram is the one who translated his book from Uthgardian to Common. And I've actually modeled, whenever I write as Wolfram, I model it after how Sasha makes mistakes translating from German to English when he's talking, meaning that sometimes the order of the words are switched around a little bit. And we'll have a section, I think, that explains these other texts within the book.
So we need to make sure with that, though, that how are you planning on making sure that the reader doesn't think we just made grammatical mistakes?
That's what I was saying. We have a thing inside that has this like list of other texts, and it says book series detailing. Well, you're right, because then if we're putting them in our journal, then we would have changed those mistakes.
Or, just we could do a quote and put little bracketed notes that that it's unedited, or that sort of thing. We could come up with a way to do it if it's a direct quote from that book. But we just have to make sure that's clear so that our readers don't look at it and think, ooh, they missed a mistake, and then we're getting letters that we screwed up or anything like that.
Yeah. I think then a better way to do it would be to do plain English with not grammatical mistakes, but with what's the word when like people are from different locales, so they have different nuances to their language, dialects.
Okay.
So it'd be common with some we'll say specific dialect.
Yeah, and if that was the other thing I was thinking, is if there is an obvious dialect happening in the text, then a grammatical mistake will probably by the reader be attributed to the dialect as opposed to us making a mistake. So I think that works.
We can also on the bottom, every time we post this, we can say like, translated from Uthgardian to Common. The next one is the Creature Obscura, which has many different authors. There's copies in most libraries, and that's like I would say like almost like a dictionary type of structure, like very just simple. And then the Zoological Encyclopedia, I just modeled that after like how people used to write in the old Encyclopedia Britannicas, you know, like very, whenever I write for the Zoological Encyclopedia, I imagine that it's David Attenborough explaining the monster to me.
Okay.
So I've gone through and oh, here's another one that we didn't put in is the Journal of Jaren Planeswalker. This one, since Jaren described a lot of these in the Elves of Uteria, I figured we would just attribute them to him and just use the stuff that was already written for those creatures.
Right. Okay.
And then here's one from Atan. And so what you can do is right now I've got I'd say like maybe down to the Behul. I think that's the last one I did. Maybe the Boggart. I'm not sure. No.
Are you just going alphabetically?
Yeah, I just started at the top, and I'm just
that's been another difficulty when I've gone in and looked. I'm just sort of, you know, the work I have done, I've just picked at random, and but that's not a good, obviously that's not a good system for getting it all complete. But I was a little worried that if we go in alphabetical order, then, well, I don't know. I guess originally I was imagining a more cohesive narrative, which I don't think is going to really, over time, I've realized, and I think we discussed it in a previous episode, that I don't think that's that a linear narrative is going to work. There are just going to be narrative components that bring out the characters and hint at a story, right? So right. I guess doing it in alphabetical order shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, and really, when you get to each one, like, it'd be so hard for us to figure out, like, how would this fit into, like, like, if we were actually playing a Sagaborn campaign with these characters, then we could go back and relate it with the campaign stories.
Right.
But to invent one would just be too much, I think. So here with the cockatrice, we see, like, what I would consider a quick entry being is, Atan has explained what it is, described it, and then also, like, the last sentence adds in, like, just a little bit of personality. And something like this, you could actually come back with, where Atan is just like, here's a creature just to be killed. Maybe if you wanted to, you could come in and say why you think that they were made, or how they're not just a creature that's meant to be classified, killed, and moved on from.
If you don't mind, let me back up for a second to when we were just talking about the narrative thing, because I think when we built out our characters and made our character sheets and all of that, there was kind of an unfinished topic, which is I do think that we need to. And we can keep this very, very broad and vague, but we need our storylines. At what age did we meet? When did it? And maybe we can come up with a couple of key points in our story where we encountered such and such a creature, and then we could insert a little bit of that into it, and then for the most part, we haven't run into all of these creatures, so we can't do it with everything. But maybe at some point, we ran into why am I drawing a blank? The vampire type creature, but it could be anything. But maybe we should come up with a few key points in our history at least. We don't have to go too overboard, but sort of a skeleton of our journey together and those key moments where we encountered this creature. And at the very least, that gives us a framework, a sort of architecture for where we're coming from.
Well, I think, we only have 20 days at this point to finish 75 creature descriptions. So I think it might be better if we just knocked out all the creature descriptions, and then because like I said, we can do very simple ones like the cockatrice. And then we can come back and pull out all the ones that Atan and Delgon have described. And then we can say, okay, here are 30 creatures let's put a story and then we can tweak those edits. But then if we have all the descriptions done, then I'm going to feel in a much more creative mode of like, of how to organize it and add in some narrative elements. Because right now I'm just watching, like, in my head this morning, I thought, well, it's still the beginning of February. And then I realized that we're already 10 days in and the editor needs this in it, in the beginning of March to get it done during spring break. But I think what will happen is when you jump in with this is stories will just come out like it did with this apparition. I read the description of the creature and I just like imagine this scene that it was happening in, almost like a Conan mini adventure in my head that I just brought down to one paragraph. Because like I know where Atan and Delgon start. I know where they end up as these old monster hunters in Kowal. And then in between, it's like tossing in all these little short stories. And going from there.
Okay.
Because also the other thing that we're going to find is a lot of these creatures are going to be sort of boring, not boring to play against, but like, giant centipede I even wrote for Atan. So I would have thought that like that would have been one that would have been good for the encyclopedia. But for example, every Golem out there's no way that like our characters ran into every Golem. So would we have them run into one, or would we just say, hey, let's do every Golem from the encyclopedia? And I think that should be our framework first. And then I think we'll end up with like 30 creatures that we've done descriptions on, and maybe 20 of them that are really interesting. That's like, let's expand on this a little bit. Like, right. How does that sound as a working model?
Yeah, I think that's fine. If we're just describing first, then that much I agree with. If there's going to be any sense of a narrative, I need a better idea of who I am. So that's this is the way my brain works. I have to get into the head of who is this person, and I'm not there yet. So we can go through and do the descriptions, but at some point I need to know. And I'm not talking about some significant amount of work. I just mean, like I said, when did we meet, and what were the circumstances? What are a couple of the key the things that shaped me and shaped you in terms of encounters that we had? And it could be 2 encounters. It doesn't have to be. I'm not even talking about filling out a bunch of long descriptions. I just mean, where am I coming from in this? And I need to know a couple of those key points in order to do that. But yeah, I do agree. Just for deadline purposes, let's get some descriptions in place first, get all that done, and then we can figure that out.
And we should just start keeping in notes, in the notes page, anything that we have between these two guys. And I agree. Like I have a pretty clear vision of what I want Atan to be like. I've written like a headspace pretty easily. And I think really you should just model Delgon like a little bit after your philosophical side. I mean, I think our personalities in how we're writing this and how we're talking about writing it right now pretty much describes how me and you both work. You spend a lot of time getting everything ready, and I sort of like I jump in and I fight with it as it's coming out to bring it together as a piece. And what if like writing the creature compendium is how these guys tackle hunting monsters? Atan's just like, yep, there's some cockatrices in here, let's go in and kill them. Yep, they're big, they're ugly, Like, if they bite you, they turn you to stone. And you're like, but wait, shouldn't we know a little bit more about these guys? And like, are they really causing harm to the people around here? And like, I
Right.
mean, I think that could be and I think that would come naturally to how we describe these creatures because that's our personality already.
I agree. I like that.
I'm also, I am excited because I want these characters to become bigger names within the world. So I am excited about fleshing them out and adding adventures. And, I think I had a whole lot of hopes, talking to people about like running games with these characters where we could fight against the monsters. And then I've just watched just time just slip away, as it does. Uh, I don't think I thought much about how the holidays would impact this, being around family and also just like winter sicknesses.
No, man, that's like speaking for myself. It's just amazing that I have this little trip to Vegas, and when I literally 3.5 weeks just out the window, just gone. Um, Unexpectedly. And it doesn't even just affect this, it affects a lot of things. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a little hard when it's not our full-time job to get all this done, because sometimes you just come home and you're like, I need to write, and then you find yourself asleep on a chair and you're like, okay, apparently I need to sleep.
Right.
So I'd say the first thing for you to read through, and it's not a whole lot, is the Creature Compendium Notes and Fiction.
Yep, I got that.
So that way you understand what a lot of these things are. Like, because some things will say like this creature has construct traits, and under the Compendium Notes and Fiction, it tells you what construct traits mean. And I do want to, one of the parts in the notes that we have to work on, I think it'll come with the characters, is the Monster Hunters kit. I want us to describe like what all things a monster hunter would have on him while he's hunting, like
Right.
obviously you'd have to have salt, you'd have to have cold iron and things like that. And then an explanation of why you'd have those things.
Right.
And I think some of those will come in as we describe the monsters, because one of the things that I found is, uh, when I'm writing Sagaborn and I'm trying to keep it really simple, you cut out a lot of stuff, and then when you're really jumping into the system, you realize, wow, there's some things that I needed to put in there that I didn't put in. Like just small descriptions. For example, that every character rolls hit points at every level. You pretty much know that when you play games, but if someone jumped in, and I've had some people ask, like, so do I just get my starting hit points? And I was like, holy crap. Like, you slim down, you can see how a small book can expand out quickly as you have to define all these things that allow the game to work. But it's such a struggle to be like, okay, this needs to be included and this doesn't, because we can't just let that sort of bloat happen, that where it keeps blowing up and everything gets defined where you can't keep up with it. But
right.
At the same time, it's been really neat. Like, one of the big things was, when I was doing the Iron Golem, I realized that he had a weakness to tritium, which is a metal that's in our world, and tritium is one of the hardest metals out there. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense because you're fighting an iron golem, so of course it's going to be damage reduction unless you're hitting it with something that can actually destroy iron, like cut into iron. But which then led to me having to write a much longer description on tritium to explain like how hard tritium is, like that it has extra hit points, that it is so then if a tritium sword can cut through an iron golem, well, if you're wearing tritium armor, then can an iron sword hit you? And so as you define these things, the creatures, all of a sudden it's expanding out and making the world broader and also making it more defined. but it's constant, like little rewrites that you're adding, more and more stuff to it as well, which is why we have a good Wikipedia page. So it explains all that stuff. Is there, besides this, is there anything else that you had questions about?
No, I think I'm ready to get started. I have one other question, but I would need you to go back to your video first.
Okay.
Right behind you to your right. This is driving me nuts. Right above, there's a thing, and it looks like a lit tunnel going into your wall.
Yeah.
What kind of sorcery is that? I've never noticed it before.
Oh, it's just something I picked up in my adventures.
Yeah, but it looks like it's going into your wall as a tunnel.
It's a little dungeon wall mount, and it's to break the magic, it has a mirror set up in it. So it has 2 LED little torches, and then it just looks like it goes back into infinity.
Okay, in video, it's impressive.
Oh no, in real life,
like you have a tunnel going into your wall.
It literally looks like there is just it goes back into the dungeon.
All right.
Yeah, I swapped up. I didn't have time to set up in front of the bar as usual, so this is actually my normal writing area with Swanda behind me, and just a little reminder that this is the place to get PBR because we're in Nashville, and
right,
and it's hipster enough. Well, cool. I've got some stuff started. Like I said, some of these creatures are from past adventures. So, like the Varag is sharing the screen again. It's already written, and so all we have to do is just go in and decide what book it would be a part of and add that in. And that doesn't mean that we can't put in our own creature notes on it, but also, like, when I'm going through these, sort of, if one already has a good description on it, I'm like, okay, let's move on to the next one, because we're going to have to go back through and sort of do one final edit on all these anyways. So we might as well do the ones that don't have things and then worry about, the ones that do once we're all done with that. Does that sound good?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Well, I think this might have been one of our most boring episodes. But I also think that this is showing really what we set out to do, which is show like how we would write a book. And sometimes it's not fun interviews with people. It's just sitting down and going, okay, we're going to have to do a whole lot of work, and this is how it gets done.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we will wrap it up as one of our shortest episodes ever. But thanks for meeting me this, I guess it's not really morning, semi-morning. And I guess we will talk soon. So thanks everyone for joining us. It was another Beyond the Escape, and we will see all you guys soon too.